Hello, this is Krinstar, and today I am looking at doing a kind of a summary over some of the work I've done last night. The original idea I had was I wanted to randomize a parameter on a device. And let me show an example here. So, spoilers. So I have the tracks here, and let's say I have something loaded like the polymer. Simple device. It's got a lot of parameters on it as soon as it loads. It's got a lot of parameters, a bunch of these. Would it be nice to kind of randomize a certain one? Now, I have this randomizer extension that can sort of do that. Just randomize all positions, and see if I click on it, it's sort of randomizing it. And I thought, well, hey, that's pretty dang cool. So let me go figure out how that's done. So that's an extension. Bitwig allows you to code extensions using either Java or JavaScript. You can learn about them by going here to help, where I have loaded in looking at the controller API reference, and that's what I had up at the time right here. And if you're not a developer, of course, this is going to get really scary really quickly. But as a person that's been developing in both Java, C#, and JavaScript for, well, most of his adult life, I'm kind of used to this stuff and how I read it. But it still took me quite a bit of time to produce what I did in the time that I did it, because this is not sort of... Their language is awesomely cool, and I understand most of the documentation, except for when it comes to how their layout of trying to get properties and variables, and I'll go into that later. But realistically, everything in here starts with the host controller. Kind of, here we go. Controller host. Oof. Took way too long. And this is all going to be stuff that people that are not into programming is going to, yeah, you probably tuned out by now anyways if you weren't into programming. For those that stayed, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I do appreciate, hopefully I get you where you want to be. Hopefully a little bit more curious if you're not, and this is kind of looking into it. Either way, doesn't really matter. But these are methods. These are usually just calls that you can make that are on this class right here. And you can make, and it returns certain objects that you can call, and those are all the classes that you can call and all that fun stuff. So that'll bring me to this Visual Studio JavaScript code here. And basically put this kind of loads the version API. This helps you in case Bitwig version increases, somebody takes your script and they install it on an older version or a newer version, and it won't match the API, and it'll cause some errors, and you want that, so that basically they're not hounding you over issues that the thing may have caused because it upgraded a version you weren't ready to go there yet. And so that's what that does. Same thing for this one right here. It's just another way of handling it. Also, you can load a lower API, and if you want like version 1 on here because it worked better, you can also stick that as version 1. Which is that's really cool. This is all the stuff that had set up the host. Okay, so there's two things that I want to kind of make known on this of what I have. There's this init, and then there's the actual function information that I wanted to do for the randomization. And I don't really have any randomization in yet because I stumbled in a couple other problems that I had, and I'll explain that later. But realistically, this is it. You can think of it like a kind of declaration. In programming, you have to declare things to kind of assign the memory type things. So you declare things and say, hey, I'm about to use this. And so later when you actually use it, it knows about it. And it helps kind of create space and memory in the computer to do that. And that's kind of what this is doing. But there's also this mark interested that's kind of blows me away, that not only do you kind of declare things up top, but you kind of mark it that you're going to actually get the properties and use them in some novel way or fashion, which is kind of weird, dude. Normal programming don't follow this thing. At least not that I know of. You just get the information, you do device name, get, and you use it. You don't have to mark it interested. You definitely don't have to do it like this. This is weird. Kind of gets used to. But anyway, this you can actually. This is more of a kind of space holder, and that's the other thing I didn't get about this is that realistically, your tracks don't have to exist. Nothing actually has to be on there for you to declare it. You're just going ahead and saying, hey, all of this stuff is going to exist anyways. I'm just clearing out space for it, regardless if you use it or not. And that's another weird thing coming from a kind of a strict programming background like C# and C and stuff like that. You're kind of sitting there at some point when you get into recursively calling stuff that doesn't exist. You're kind of either creating it or you're possibly creating it, creating space and stuff like that, but it's never going to be the same instance or the reference to the thing you use secondary. So that's weird beyond me. So like here, I'm creating a whole bunch of stuff to be used later, but it doesn't matter at this point because basically when I actually kick off the function, then it uses it. And I'll basically these print lines actually help me there. But as you notice, there's not a whole lot of code here because it's all been defined up here. And that really drives me nuts because it doesn't really exist up here, yet we're using it down here. And the stuff that it's in Bitwig can change, but we still have stuff down here. And I can add tracks, I can remove tracks. But up here, we've declared that we have 8 tracks. So as long as there's 8 tracks in there, it'll work with it all the way up until the 8, as far as I know. You can always change it later, but I'm told it does weird things. So in Bitwig, we have this polymer here, right? And so if I hit my thing to open up my panel, I can go to my output here, and then I can type in the method name. You didn't notice the method name here. You can actually call the function in here, and it will hit the function, and it will sit here and go, oh hey, there's a track name. It has polymer on it, and it has a parameter oscillator sub too. And then if I go in over here, or it should be no, not that one. Over here, look at that. In the first parameter, it has the oscillator sub. That's what this is talking about right here. And if we move this moves, and it's in the parameter page. If we change the parameter change to cutoff, so it's actually moving the cutoff, and then rerun this. Look at that, it changed the cutoff. If I were to change this to polymer to something else, the name would change and stuff, other stuff like that. So it's going through and it's picking up the change. And I would have expected it to change the reference, but it should have been a hard reference, being like, hey, I'm only this and I can only be this. But no, it doesn't care. It's just a placeholder type of thing, and it blows the mind of a normal programmer like myself, because I'm told that you have to have a reference, you have to have, each object has a reference, and that object, that reference will go null if it's not the same, and you got all kinds of other weird stuff. Bitwig's programming kind of gets around it, at least in the JavaScript. I haven't programmed that much on the Java side of it, but I kind of understand it's the same thing looking at some of the Java applications that people have written, because some of it's open source. Case in point, driven by Moss, most of his is open source. And this randomizer plugin is actually open source. So, getting with that, it took me 4 hours to wrap my head around this language, and not the way that it works. Because this up here, I was trying to get tracks and wasn't successful. I was getting blank tracks up here because, 30 years of development, and you say, hey, if you're going to create an instance of something, you're going to use it. And it's like, this is how you do it. And I wasn't getting an instance because I wasn't following the pattern of create the instance up here and then actually use the sucker down here. Kind of weird. If I were to copy this and let's say use it up here, and we're going to save, and as soon as you save, one of the cool things is that it'll reload. And look, the track names are blank. But wait, we got a polymer, we got audio too. the track names are blank. Mind-blowing. So if I type in my function again, wait, the track names are not blank. There's polymer, there's track name, there's everything. So what's the difference between this and then the track name? That's the exact point. Is that honestly the initialization just creates placeholders, dummy. Nothing exists in the initialization step. This part right here, it doesn't exist. It doesn't actually work until you get down to here. When you actually do a function or something. It's just you're creating an initialization or something. It's really, really weird. Okay, so I got up all the way up to a point where, okay, I got the device name. I want to move something around here. The problem is that the way that you could get it, I think the API only allows you to hit these. And so when I got to it down to the parameter, I got to these, and it's like, oh, I'll just be replicating what this one does, because this one does the same thing. It looks, when you hit randomize all parameters, it's just randomizing these things. And if something's not tied to one of these, it doesn't touch it at all. So basically, it kind of defeats the purpose of why I coded in old in the first place. But it made for really interesting learning into how Bitwig works. It made really interesting. So if I still want to continue doing the extension framework stuff or messing around with the UI, I kind of understand it a heck of a lot better going in. That I have to declare stuff. I have to use it down below and what I want. But honestly, it's a great start because it helps me identify and to move where things are. So I'm able to hit the track, get the track. I'm able to get the device. I'm able to get the parameters within the device down below, depending. I think this is called a cursor device. And that's kind of an important class in there because it'll help you get the one that's selected or the one that has focus, which is kind of important along the way. But realistically, I just wanted to do a video on stuff I did last night and talk about it. Not really anything musical, but realistically, this thing is probably for future me, or this video is probably for future me when I forget all of this stuff and want to go back into it. And I don't want to lose 4 hours again. I'll watch this video because basically this is a very good thing on why I created the stuff I did. And overall, it's actually really cool. The API is really cool. It's got a whole bunch of stuff in it to literally get everything except for the one thing I wanted to do, and that's mess around with the parameters on a VST instrument. There is getting a VST, but you have to use Java, and you have to know the device name. And I'm doing this in JavaScript, so it really didn't apply to me. Or at least I don't think for now. It might have changed at the time that API version 10. As you can see, we're using 19 as the version, so it's been 9 versions, so it might have changed. But overall, it wasn't working when I was doing it, so I'm gonna assume that it's still the same way. But overall, if you're still here, thanks for watching. I know this is probably boring stuff, but it's stuff that I learned when I was developing it last night, so I wanted to do a video on it, regardless if it's boring. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I will catch you later.